Okay. Let me pray for us and we'll dive in. Father, thank you for the great privilege of being able to learn this ancient language and to read your word in the original language. I pray you help us today. Help me as a teacher. I pray in all of this that you would help us see the beauty of the meta-narrative, and that Hebrew would be means of grace for us to see the beauty of whole Bible biblical theology. Would you help us today as we look at details? We pray all this in Christ's name. Amen. So we're doing 8A and 8B on Wednesday and Friday, and want you to listen. Try to listen to Genesis 1:1 to 2:4 all the way through. Probably your attention span will go off probably halfway through, but the longer you can get in that reading and follow, the better off you're going to be. We are going to memorize the Shema, or at least say the Shema. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha L'kol Bekol Levavka U'Vekol Nafshka U'Vekol Meldeka. So you want to listen to the guy read that, and if you can follow along at all, that's going to be helpful. By Friday, we'll do the quiz on 91 through 105. So we're trying to get the top 500. So we're making our way. First 100 we'll have down. And I just want to look at something, and you might say, why are these vowel marks so difficult? And there's a reason they're so difficult, because actually there's an obsolete system that they tried and that fell out of use. And then there's a system that we use now, but both those systems were kept. So when we actually read the text, it's a mixture of two different ways of dealing with the vowel marks. So the first thing they tried was what they called mater lectionis, mothers of reading. And that is where they would use a consonant as if it were a vowel. So this yod, like way back in the manuscripts when they were unpointed, they would treat this yod as if it were a long I. They would treat this yod as if it were a long I. They would treat this hey as if it were a long A. This U as if it were a long U. So everything in red, this is from Cutts and Josberger, very helpful writing here. The red is what the scribes added to try to help us to read. So it's called a mother of reading. So their vowel letters are what some scholars will call historically or unchangeably long letters. Well, after a while, some people made up a system, a Babylonian system, with these marks. And so a short A was this mark, a long A was this mark, a short E, long I, long O, long U. Well, that didn't really catch on, and so they tried this Palestinian system. Similar, but a little different. That didn't catch on. Eventually, B19A was written in what's called a Tiberian system, which was developed on the Sea of Galilee at Tiberias, and that's why it's called Tiberian. And so this is what B19A uses, and this is what we're learning. So we're learning the Tiberian system, but it's the Tiberian system that was placed over this obsolete Mater Lectionis system. What that means is that if you go to the Dead Sea Scrolls, what you're going to see is this. No pointing. Not pointed at all. After about 400, this is what you're going to see. So notice there aren't even dageshes in the Begad-Kafat letters. So this system is an artificial system that was placed over the Mater Lectionis. But when they did this, they were so careful at how they counted letters when they copied the manuscripts that they won't make any corrections. So, say for instance, you needed a tohu vabohu that was supposed to be a shurik, but their copy didn't have the shurik. They'll point it as a kibbutz, but it's defective writing. They should have had it there, but they don't. But they're not going to change the numbers of the vowels in the text, so they just get it as near as they can with a defectively written vowel. So not only do we have an obsolete system, and over top of that a Tiberian system, but we have a system where they will not make corrections in the manuscript. And so you'll get places where it should be Hirik Yod, according to our rules, but the manuscript didn't have a Yod, and so they'll say, I'll put the Hirik there, but I'm not going to change how many Yods there are in this manuscript, so I'm going to leave it. Well, we come along and it's like, that looks like a short I, and it is a short I, but it's defectively written, so read it as a long I, but supply the Yod. And it's like, how in the world am I supposed to deal with that? But it's because you've got several systems, and then coupled with the idea we're not going to change the text at all. Whatever appeared in the original, that's exactly what we're going to pass on. And so this is a hard system, because it's not this thing, learn 3 rules and they always work, because there are some places where they don't work, but the reason they don't work are because of other things than just the rules going on. So any questions or comments on that?
Basically read it without the pointing. So I can see why they would say, oh, we don't need that. But, I mean, Jacob and I ran into issues where, like, trying to read the verbs. Like, well, there's no points on this, so how is it said? I mean, you could literally insert any vowel you wanted here.
That's exactly. So if we were Jews and our synagogue bought a Torah scroll, those are copied out by hand. They're enormously expensive. This is what we would have, not this. And so the goal for reading is to be able to read this as Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz. And this is our training wheels to get there. Bereshit bara. But this is an artificial system to try to get us here.
It makes me wonder if ancient Hebrew speakers did not really give much pronunciation to their vowels at all.
It could be that, or it could be that since this is very close to the first alphabet, the Phoenicians, the Canaanites did the first alphabet, and so Hebrews learned it from the Phoenicians. To go from a pictogram where you draw a little picture of what to an actual syllabic alphabet was a huge advance, but people probably didn't realize, we really need these vowels too, so they just had, and so they'll call things like this, they'll call it the consonantal text. And so like when you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, this is what you have. And there are places, in the Dead Sea Scrolls where you come to a letter and you say, okay, is that a mater lectionis, or is it a real consonant? And there are places where there's a debate. In that passage in Psalm 22, they pierced my hands and feet versus they dug through my hands and feet. There's a mater lectionis debate there where it could go either way. And Aquila, who deconverted from Christianity and is trying to get people away from Christianity, he comes to that and says, well, maybe it isn't an aleph, maybe it's an ayin, and you get the reading, they disfigured my hands and feet. Well, we've heard in here the difference between a ka-era and a ka-era, and it's clear that Aquila is playing with that, and he's saying, well, maybe it isn't ka-era, it's ka-era, and if it's ka-era, it's disfigured. Well, that's so close. And then you look at the manuscript and you say, they're stumbling over the same exact things we're stumbling over in terms of these very technical issues. And so that's why it's a little hard for us. So if we come to this chart, and let me see who did this chart. So I guess this is still Cutts and Jossberger. Kind of the hard and fast rule that we want to learn is trying to figure out when a schwa is a vocal schwa and when it's a silent schwa, right? That's one of the things that trips us up. And so here's the rule. If the previous vowel is short, the schwa is silent. Short, silent. If the previous vowel is long, the schwa is loud. That is vocal. Short, silent, long, loud. So if you have any of these vowels, so all the historically long ones, and then the comments, and the serré, and the holum, any of those, then the next schwa is going to be a vocal. So it's o-eh, right? If it's one of these short vowels, pata, sagol, hirik, comments, hatuf, ah, or oo, any of these, then the next one is going to be silent. A schwa is the little two.
Oh, the two upright.
Yeah. And it means nothing. That's what schwa means, nothing. So when it says, you will not lift up the name of the Lord your God, l'shav, for nothing. It's usually translated in vain, but what do they call that little letter? They call it a nothing. It's a nothing.
So for the example names you have there, you have ball, hope, and rule, all there together, and then I assume that it's their Hebrew counterparts, but they're obviously different words.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting a little mixed up here as to how they're correlating.
So the way you say either comments or comments hey is the ah in vowel. Ah. So that's what sound both of these make. And do you see how you could really understand this as just a mater lectionis? So really these two are maybe the same thing. Or a is a sere, as in they. So this makes the a sound. This makes the e sound, as in ski.
So it's essentially how much emphasis is given.
Right. Long.
Sure, but like the difference between the ta and I don't know how to pronounce the last one.
Comments. Supposedly it's half. So ah and ah. Ah, right.
French has something very similar.
And a, but this one is segol, sere, hirik versus e. This one is the one that's tough, hope, because this looks exactly like that one. And that's confusing. It's just confusing. But that's how they did it. And they actually called this an O-class vowel, and they called that a long A-class vowel. This is a short O, that's a long A. And we have the same thing. I mean, you know, oligarchy versus all, right? I mean, can you hear that one of those is O and one of those is an A? I mean, that's why English people can't spell, because we have these sounds and they sound exactly the same. We all try to spell the way we hear it, and it's like the sounds are so close. And they're giving you the same words, you know, so one's just, we're going to do a longer one.
So it's like rule and then rule.
Yeah.
So how do we decide which one is the comments and the comments of the comment?
So we're just going to stumble over it a while, and eventually we're going to come to words like chokmah, the word for wisdom, and it's going to be spelled with this, and you say, okay, that's that O-class comments hatuf, but it looks exactly like a comments, but it's not.
It's like Hakama. So
Yeah, we don't say hakama, we say hokama. Yeah.
how are we supposed to know that?
And we're just going to have to stumble. We're going to have to listen to him do it. And we're going to get some things wrong. Like, you know, we're going to say some words wrong, and then we'll finally hear him and say, oh, he's actually doing that different, and then we'll correct. But, you know, it's like the guy who taught Lewis Homeric Greek. You know, Lewis said, the guy told me, go for 80%. Don't worry about the fact that you're going to miss 20%, and just volume read. Volume read's going to cover a multitude of errors. So that's what we're going to take Lewis's tutor at his word, and we're going to copy that in Hebrew.
I've run into this in other languages as well. In French, the terms for above and below are au-dessus and au-dessous.
I can't hear the difference.
Exactly. The difference is literally one level. It's one letter, and you just pronounce the ending sound just a little longer. But if you don't know and like can't hear the difference, you don't know if someone's talking about being above something or below it.
And don't you imagine their jokes too, where people play on those?
For sure.
Yeah.
I would take this system though. So simple compared to Greek. Any day.
It is. It's much.
Easy to remember.
Well,
Yeah.
it's simplistic,
Yeah, I love that.
but the simplicity allows for a lot of room for error as well, because Greek has more rules, but that's because they've encountered the problems and come up with the rules.
Yeah. That's right.
Made it so complicated. So complicated.
So gutturals, when they have vocal schwas, so a guttural is aleph, ayin, hey, het, and resh. If it's a vocal schwa, they're not going to have this. They're going to have what's called a composite schwa, a hatef schwa. So this is going to be the half A sound. This is the half E sound. And this is the half O sound. So if you have a guttural, there are 5 guttural letters. Aleph, ayin, hey, het, and resh. This will be the vocal. This will be the schwa that appears.
Easy to remember because
They look different.
Just remember this makes this noise.
Sounds like Elohim.
Elohim that has that under the aleph. All the other letters, you've got to decide, is it a silent schwa or is it a vocal schwa? So when you come to it, is this schwa closing the previous syllable, or is it making that smallest vocal sound as a separate?
So it's treated like aleph and ayin.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just there to help the syllable.
Right.
Can you say that again? Can you go over that again?
Yeah. So, and all this is coming from, I think, Kutz and Josberger. So when you have a schwa, you have to ask the question, is it a silent schwa, meaning it's closing the previous syllable, where you have consonant, vowel, consonant, and it's saying this consonant is closing the previous syllable? Or is it consonant, very small vowel, where you're actually saying this? So here's the rule. After a long schwa, or long vowel, schwa is loud. After a short vowel, the schwa sh is silent. Long, loud, short, silent. So you have to be able to think in your mind, okay, what are the short vowels? Patah, Sigol, Hirik, Kibbutz, those are short. If the schwa appears after, it's short, silent. If it's comments, any of the letters, Hirik, Yod, then the schwa is going to be loud, long, loud.
So, if I'm not mistaken, when we go back up to that chart, there's the comets, Catan. One of them is short, one of them is long.
And that's the one that's going to trip us up.
That potentially mess up like the whole entire.
Not the whole entire, only this. It can only mess up this one. And more times than not, the comments is this. This is the weird one. This is the one you're going to see all the time. So you just say, okay, I'm going to go with long unless there's a reason for me to think it's a long O sound. So another thing that's going to help us is if a dagesh appears after schwa, well, let me show you in the chart down here. It'll make more sense. Okay, is this a begad kafat? Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Kof, Pei, Tav. Okay, is this a begad kafat? Yes. You can only have dagesh in a begad kafat if it starts a syllable. Okay, I've got a schwa here. if this is a vocal schwa, can I have a dagesh here? So I've got a dagesh here, that means it's a silent schwa. So in 6 of the letters, if you have the dagesh following a schwa, then you know the schwa has to be a silent schwa. So you say this mal ka. There's your division. And see, they've got that. But here we have Yale ku. Is that a long vowel? So it turns out it is a long vowel. Sere is long. Segol is the short version. So Sere is long. And what's our rule? Long, loud. Long, loud. Because this is a vowel sound, can you have a dagesh? So you don't have it. So you got two things that are going to tell you there that this, you've got a begad kafat before a shava that doesn't have a dagesh in it. So you say that ye leku.
So what does the diagram on the right hand side mean without the vav and the yod? Is that just what you're hearing?
This is, I guess, saying that this goes that way and this one goes this way. I don't know. That doesn't really make sense to me now that I look at it. This makes sense. Mal ka. That's exactly what we... And then ye le ku. That makes sense. I'm not sure what the diagram... Oh, yeah, and has the... Oh, yeah, I see that now.
Like you breathe through it, the sound goes there.
Oh, it's where you cut the
Oh, you cut the syllable off. Okay. So, let's... So, I've got hafdeh. And it's silent, so, and this is going to answer your question, I think, Dawson. How do I know that's silent? The dagesh?
what were you saying?
The T-shaped thing that makes an ah sound.
Yes.
Underneath the, is that called a hey?
Hey.
Underneath the hey is a short vowel, which means that the shva has to be silent.
Right, so this is that comments hatuf. It's the O class comments. And I know it has because you can't have a long vowel in a closed syllable. And I know this is a closed syllable because the begad kafat can't have the dot if that makes a sound. It can't be ha, pe, de. So it has to be haf, de. The dagesh proves that this has to be a short syllable. The only way I can make it a short syllable is call it that O class comments. And then I can say this is a closed syllable and this is a syllable. And that's the begad dagesh line. You can't have a long, an unaccented closed syllable with a long vowel. You can't have that. And so, hof, der.
It's strange to me that the majority of rules that we have run into here are around pronunciation. What you can and cannot pronounce as an accepted syllable in Hebrew.
That's exactly right. And think about the things that have tripped us up have not been the verb system or prepositions. It's pointing. It's trying to learn a pointing system because it only half works.
Great job, guys.
So this is from Van de Moor, and so he's got the comments, which he points out can be written as comments, comments hey, or comments olive. All of those would be mater lectionis, I think. So this is really what it is, and then they wrote it like that. The patah is going to be the short version of that. Hatef patah is going to be the even shorter version. So all three of those are going to be pronounced the same way. It's just how long they're pronounced. And they're doing just very modern Hebrew. We've got holum, and then we've got mater lectionis letters, holum vav, holum hey, holum aleph. Okay. We've got a comments hatuf, that's that O class short vowel that we struggled with. The half comments. We've got the segol, the serre, which will be the long E, and this would be the short E, which I don't like that, you know. That seems like it's a defective writing thing, not an actual letter, but I don't know. We've got our guttural, and so we have the hatef schwas, or compound schwas. Shurik is the long U. Kibbutz is the short, and the hirik can be written with the letter or without. If it's with the letter, it's long. If it's without, it's short. And then the vocal schwa there. So again, just different grammars. Short if it's an O class, short E class, short U, short I. Long vowels, comments, holum, serre. Unchangeably long. Notice it's any consonantally written vowel is historically long because it's a mater lectionis that they would not change. They would not change how many vowels there are in the manuscript. And then the very short are the vocal schwa, and then the compounds that appear under the gutturals. Pratico and Van Pelt, a similar chart. The short vowels, the short O, short U. They put it together that way. Older Davidson doing the same thing, but a little bit cleaner chart. I have to admit, I like that one a little bit. I really like this suggestion. This made sense to me. If you think of a syllable as a unit, and you're going to have similar units, then consonant, short vowel consonant would make a unit, and consonant long vowel would make the same length of sound. So if it's short, it's consonant, short, consonant. And if it's long, it's consonant vowel. That, I don't know if that made sense.
Like noon and noon. So it would be like delegating the prosody of the language. Like, but I want it to sound a certain way. I want it to have a certain rhythm.
Yeah. So, having gone over all those things, this is a chart I put together. So, I'm calling these the historically long ones, and notice they're all the ones that have the letters. The long ones will be, well, even this, I think I should probably omit this, because this is only long when it's defectively written for this. So what you have is they don't want to put a vav there, but they want it to be a long U, and so they put this, but this is a short vowel. And some people will talk about a long hear-it, but what it really is this that's defectively written. So like you've got Elohim, but they leave the yod out. It's still a long hear-it, but they just misspell the word, and they don't want to add, because when they count up the vowels, they want to have the number everybody's always got. That's what a Masoretic text is, a counted text. And the Masoretes are counters, so they went through and counted all the olives, and they got a number, all the baits, and got a number. And so when they wrote a manuscript, they'd have somebody else count it. If that number was wrong, then the manuscript's no good. So what they're doing is they're defectively writing. Well, they did it per book, and so you come to the end of Judges and Ruth, which they treated as one book, and they have a number of olives and number of bait, and that's how they guaranteed that it was a good translation. But what that meant is when you get a place and you should have that, you're going to write this, and you're going to call it a long vowel, but it's not long, it's and they call that defective writing, defectively written, a defectively written pointed text.
4 hours on Saturday counting up the homecoming combinations. I can't imagine doing this for a living.
Like doing the whole book of Genesis. Yeah. Like
Go.
counting each letter in Genesis.
And you forget where you are, and you've got to start over again. I mean, yeah.
Imagine getting to chapter 49. Chapter 49 or chapter 50.
13,702. You know, is
We
it?
already do 13,702? Oh, snap. Like, that's a month's work gone. And hence the abacus was invented.
Or like you get done and like with that one letter, and then you start over. And then do better.
22. So you're going to go through 22 letters and get the numbers.
I bet the suicide rate in that profession was so high.
And when Jesus said, "Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites,"
They were already.
that's what he's talking about, people who wrote out the text for a living. And the king was commanded to write out a copy of the Pentateuch. How long would that take? Well, it takes about a year to copy a scroll out today. So the king, when he becomes king, copies a personal copy by hand that's checked by the priest to make sure he got it right. And then he's supposed to read from that copy every single day. It's why Uzzah is killed, because David had not done that. And he didn't know that you were supposed to carry the ark on poles, because he didn't follow God's direction of writing it out by hand and have it read to you every day. But Jesus did. He knew every rule and he followed it exactly. So, do you feel a little bit better about why we're struggling with this? Like, it's not a perfect system. And did you see that the scholars even disagree, like how you're supposed to say the letters? That's why it's difficult for us. But Futato, who's a great scholar, he introduces this term medium because what he means by that is these can change into shorts if they get far enough away from the accent. And he's absolutely right about this, but it doesn't help us with our long, loud, short, silent. So we'll look at the chart, but we're going to go with the rule until we're proved we can't use the rule. Okay. So we probably need to rest a little bit, our minds. Does your mind feel a little tired? Mine feels a little tired right now. Did you guys do anything interesting over the weekend?
I went to a video game tournament on Friday.
Did you win?
I did not. I lost.
What video game?
Super Smash Brothers.
Oh, my son talks about that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite games, and I like to think I'm pretty good at it.
It's pretty frighteningly good at it, but apparently
Knoxville.
Not very
I went
good
to
in
Knoxville for the tournament, and it was brutal.
this man drove an hour and a half out to Knoxville.
To lose within 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was sad, but one of my friends who doesn't go to Knox, he goes to Tech, but he went to the tournament too. He made 5th out of 100 and so many people. So I tied for like 120. So I tied for probably 110th place or so, because there were people who also lost as bad as I did. So we all tied for like 110.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so he made 5th, which was really impressive.
Hmm. Has that been announced yet?
No, it was supposed to be announced tonight, but then the school pushed out the event that they're having to announce it. So now I have to go to it tomorrow night.
Oh. I watched football and graded papers. I got caught up. That was good. Oh man, they did. But have you seen those YouTube videos? They call them SEC shorts. Have you seen the one on Georgia and Hope? So Hope is this beautiful girlfriend, you know. And so the Georgia is like the suitor or whatever, and she's trying to get him to Hope again. And he says, no. He says, I've been doing this 40 years. I know how this always works out. You're going to pull me in and break my heart. I will not do it. So, like that so resonates with me. Georgia won the national championship when I was 17. And I just assumed they were going to win it every year. Matter of fact, when they put national championship on the big sign there on the stadium, they put it with a dash. So it was like 1980 dash, like we were going to win it like 5 years in a row. And so we played for it 3 times and lost 2. And then since then we played for it and lost. So I've seen 4 national championships and we lost 3 of them. And so this year we looked pretty good, and it's like, but I felt this way before. I remember 2012, we were ranked number 1 in the nation and lost, you know, on the 5-yard line to Alabama, you know. So how do you lose? How do you bring a guy in off the bench and lose on 2nd down and 26? But who's counting, right? Yeah. Oh, man. So we play Arkansas. Arkansas looks really good. If they lose, I'm going to walk around here all mopey for a month.
Y'all have to play water at some point, too. That would be a good game.
You know, always on Halloween, we play them. We play Arkansas and Auburn, Tennessee, I think, and then Florida.
I'll be at the Georgia Tennessee game.
Is it in Georgia or Tennessee?
Tennessee.
Uh,
It's gonna be a beatdown. Tennessee.
You never know. I mean, I remember that year Josh Dobbs in the last second. Oh my goodness.
I was driving down the road listening to that game on the radio, coming home from a baseball game, and when he did, I started screaming so loud in the car, screaming Rocky Top, stuck my head out the window.
I was screaming too, but it wasn't Rocky Top. So, all right. Well, we cleared our minds, I think. So, avar. Couple ways you can memorize this word. Some people think the word Hebrew comes from this word that we're passing through the world. Some debate that, but that's my mnemonic device. Brother, say he's my brother. That's what Abraham tells Sarah. Achi. Sava, if you can remember bar mitzvah, the son of the commandment, is related to that word. Cain is thus. I just had to memorize that. Nakah sounds like knock to me, so knock and might I got. Question?
Yeah, for 3, if the letters themselves have number values, then why is 3 this particular word? Just
So the letters do have number values, and there is some belief that you might have had those abbreviated numbers, but just like we have numbers and spelled out numbers, that's the difference.
so this is 3 spelled out.
Right. So I give you a mnemonic device. This is 6, shesh. If it's separated, this is 3. And I remember, okay, 3s, if they have to be touching to be 6. So shesh is 6. If they're not touching, it's 3. And it was years. I was confused by numbers for years. I did an independent reading class with a very good Hebraist. He said he was confused for years. Then finally, like I'm 25 years into Hebrew, and somehow I stumbled over the fact that when you're using numbers, if it's 1 to 10, if the word is masculine, you have to use a feminine number. And if the word's feminine, you've got to use a masculine. It's like a little married couple, you know, if you're 1 to 10. But after 10, it doesn't follow that rule. No wonder I was confused, right? You've got, who would have thought you have gendered numbers and you take the opposite of those numbers for a certain segment?
English has rules for what font the numbers we use as well. If it's the first thing that appears in the sentence, you have to write it out.
One of the days.
But if it's 1 through 10, you use the written out font. If it's 10 or more, then you use the written out font.
That sounds like an editor right there. So Sabah is like an army. Mnemonic device, the Lord Sabaoth, his name. Sabaoth, this is a feminine word, so oath is the plural, right? So Yahweh of armies is what Yahweh Sabaoth means.
So that word is sabah.
Sabah, that's right.
Hey, what was the mnemonic for armies?
Lord Sabaoth, Yahweh Sabaoth, Lord Sabaoth, his name from age to age, the same. Mighty Fortress is our God. Lord Sabaoth, and usually translated Yahweh of Hosts. The Lord of Hosts is his name. And so he's not only got an army, he's got a multitude of armies. And if you think about that, that one text where the guy mocks God and God sends one angel and 185,000 people wake up dead. Okay, that's a bad day. You wake up dead, it's going to pretty much go downhill from there. And that's one, and God has an army of servants. All is not, whenever you have like a subjunctive, you should not do this. Chamesh is 5. You call a commentary on the Pentateuch a chumash. That's my mnemonic device. Od is still. And Rosh is head. Bereshit. Rosh is head. Rosh Hashanah coming up in a little bit. The head of the year, or the start of the year. So that's where we are. 101. We're doing great. So well done. I'll see you on Wednesday.